What is going on, Nuggets Nation, NBA fans? I'm Tom Leuthner. Have a great weekend. I'm going to start off with that. Welcome back into Nuggets Today. So we have some topics. I've been doing whatever research I can. I know there's not a lot of updates, but there have been some people being thrown around in the Nuggets conversation. And the first guy that we have here is somebody that we've covered in the past who I think is awesome for Denver, and that is Luke Kennard. Now, Luke Kennard is set to be a free agent. Obviously, the Grizzlies are looking to blow it up, technically. I mean, maybe not blow it up. They want to keep Ja and Jaren. They got rid of Bane, so maybe they look to bring Kennard back. I know that, obviously, Santi Aldama is a free agent. He's somebody that we covered as well. At first, I saw some signs that Santi's going to come back and they're going to do whatever they can to get him back. But now I'm seeing that they might want to sign and trade him in order to extend Jaren Jackson, so we'll see what happens with that. But they're also going to have to extend Jaren Jackson, so that means that maybe Luke Kennard can't afford to go there, but who knows? Now, again, like I said, he's just throwing in the conversation as to who people Denver should look at, and I was actually looking at what Bill Simmons had said about him, and he said the Nuggets should target Luke, obviously, and he said that if you think about who Jokic would play phenomenally with, it's Luke Kennard. He said that he would like for him to be our backup point guard, which I don't know if I agree with that. But like I've said, we've covered Kennard's stats. Obviously he's had his injury history, but I also think a lefty shooter off the bench. You think about Denver and you think, who's their shooter, right? And that shooter has always been Michael Porter Jr., at least for the last few years. But if you go back and think about other Denver teams at least, that had shooters before Jokic, and I guess right in the beginning of Jokic's career, when I think bench shooters for the Nuggets, I think guys like Randy Foye, who actually started for a little while, Aaron Aflalo, who also started for a while, but guys like that, Eduardo Nahara, like guys who were able to shoot, these bench pieces that were helping Denver win games who were able to shoot. That's who I think about. Maybe Denver wasn't winning anything at those points, but you know what I mean. Guys who can actually come in, play the game, hit some threes, and make a difference. And I think that Luke Kennard, with how Jokic sets players up, can really make a difference. I think that he is that guy. I've covered him, like I said in the past, I've covered him before, and I think that he is very good. I think that he's a very good role player for Denver. I think that Denver needs a spot-up shooter off the bench. You have Strother, like I said, but I've covered it multiple times. I think that Strother can become more of a shot creator, and Luke Kennard can be more of a spot-up shooter. Now, MPJ, we know he has his issues. Like I said, he's had his injury history, but he's been Denver's shooter. But if you're able to get somebody who can replace those MPJ minutes and be just as good of a shooter, if not better, then go ahead and do so. And he won't be even nearly as expensive as MPJ is, obviously. The next topic I want to cover here is Scary Terry. Now, I don't know where it came from, but the betting odds came out for Terry Rozier's next team. The Nuggets were number 2. How? I don't know. Were there any reports of it? Not at all. But I would also take Scary Terry in a heartbeat. Now, Scary Terry, who was a guy in Boston playing 25 minutes a game, actually right around 26 minutes a game, he was averaging 12 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 5 rebounds rather. And those numbers they continued to, the year after they went down, but then from there, when he went to Charlotte, they went up like crazy. His years in Charlotte, 18 points, 20 points, 19 points, 21 points, 23 points. Then when he went to Miami his first year, he was averaging 16 and right around 16 and a half, 4.2, 4.6. This past year, he had his injury history. He had I know that they were investigating on him betting on himself in Charlotte, which I don't know if there's been an outcome for that actually. But like I said, he's a guy who can come in. He'd be great for Denver. He'd be a good fit. He'd be the backup 1 or backup 2, whatever you want him to be, whatever you want him to play. But Terry's a good player. He was always a starting caliber player in the NBA. He might not be right now, and I think that he had said his fit in Miami's not working, and he acknowledged that. But then, why not look to go somewhere else? And if that somewhere else needs to be a competitor, then you could easily come to Denver. You look at what he was doing last year. He played 64 games total, played 26 minutes a game, shot 39 from the field, 29% from 3. Like I said, he had mentioned that he was not a good fit in Miami, so then why not come to Denver, where if you could be with a guy like Jokic, he could set you up. You look at his career numbers, and like I said, he said that he wasn't fitting in Miami. His first year in Miami, he's actually played way less games, but he shot 37% from the 3. He shot 42% from the field, and you look at his career stats, and when it comes to shooting the ball, he's a 36% three-point shooter. Now, I know what people might say, well, that doesn't matter for his career because last year he stunk. Well, if some players don't thrive in systems they're in. Look at Bruce Brown, for example, a guy who never worked, who wasn't able to get a contract, that when Mike Malone called him before the championship and asked why teams aren't signing him, he said that teams don't know how to use me. But when he was on Denver, he was great. So I think that, again, it depends on the team that you're in, or you're on rather, that you're able, in an environment that you're able to thrive in. And I think that if Denver's able to bring in Terry Rozier, make him the backup point guard, then you are good enough to thrive in that situation. Look at Russ. Russ is a guy who has been tossed from team to team to team, and people don't actually want him because they didn't think he was good enough. And Denver made him a player that's actually want, that teams actually want him now because he was good enough to do so. And I think that teams still knew that Russell Westbrook was good to play, obviously. But at the same time, those numbers may not have come if he went to a team like the Jazz or if he went back to the Lakers. On the Lakers, he looked unplayable. So, like I said, I think Terry Rozier, if Denver, I don't know where the betting odds came out that Terry Rozier is in those, but if you're able to go out and get him for cheap, please do so. This next topic that I want to cover is another player that I've talked about in the past, and this is a trade that I saw, it was a potential trade rather, on what would work for both teams contract-wise and everything, and that is the Suns. So we already know the Suns are looking to get rid of Allen. They're looking to get rid of Royce O'Neal. They want to move on from those contracts. So I've been seeing some mock trades. There's one that stuck out to me a little bit, and that is Hunter Tyson and Zeke Naji for Royce O'Neal. Now, I know that you might not think that's enough, but like I said, Royce O'Neal is in his 30s. They want to move on from him. You're getting two guys that are in their young 20s, right? You look at Naji. I believe Naji's only 24, 25, 26. He's in that range. He's a young player. Like I said, some players don't thrive in certain situations. He wasn't even getting an opportunity because Denver didn't think he was good enough. And like I said in the playoffs, I thought maybe he was good enough to get a few minutes if Denver needed a backup big. But like I said, I think that, again, I've covered Royce O'Neal. I think that Phoenix is in a funny situation. You look at the bigs they're losing. They still have Nick Richards and they still have Oso Ighodaro. But they stated they were looking for bigs. So I'm not really sure why. I know that they wanted to target a big with the KD trade, if that even happens at this point. But they are losing Mason Plumlee, Bol, so I guess they're losing a little bit of depth there. And who knows, maybe if they do trade KD and they don't get a power forward, either Ryan Dunn is starting at the 4 or you're starting Oso Ighodaro. You need a backup, and that backup could be Zeke Naji. Now you need a spot-up shooter because if you're going to trade Grayson Allen, you need somebody to come in and get those minutes because Monte Morris is also a free agent. So why not get Hunter Tyson, who can sit in the corner, grab the ball and shoot when Devin Booker and Bradley Beal aren't on. So I think that it could be a realistic move. And if Denver needs to throw in the 31 first to get Royce O'Neal and win a championship now, maybe go ahead and do so and attempt to trade somebody in the upcoming years when Royce O'Neal's contract is over or when he's done, if he might retire, and maybe try to get some picks. But again, I'm not mad if you throw that pick in, trade those two guys, get them off the books, and get Royce O'Neal in, who's older right now, but makes more of a difference than both those guys. This last topic, obviously, like I covered last episode, is this community talk topic. I want to get you guys involved as much as I can. And like I said, community has spoken, so let's talk about it, right? Fent Jones, I'm not going to say his whole name, has commented on a handful of videos, and shout out to him for actually commenting. But he said that, you can't go off of Gary Harris's stats in Orlando's offense, which I do agree with, but I also look more into it, right? He's obviously getting older. The main fact for me is that in his career, he's only had 2 seasons where he missed less than 20-plus games. So that scares me, and I know that we had to deal with that in Denver. In the past 3 years, his games played in order have been 48, 54, 48. Now, do I think he could be a great bench piece in Denver? Sure I do. He knows the system. He knows how to play around a guy like Jokic, a guy like Murray. But I also I looked in the free agency, and I'm looking at players, obviously, and I've covered a bunch of them. There are multiple people, guard-wise, that I would look into to trading or picking up before I look into Gary Harris. Now, some of those names are 2 of the guys I just named, which are Luke Kennard and Royce O'Neal, obviously. Some other guys that cover Tyus or Trey Jones, Sam Merrill, who might be moving on from Cleveland, Ty Jerome, who also might be moving on from Cleveland, Dennis Schroeder, who's somebody I covered, and somebody I actually haven't covered, but I think could work if Denver can get him for cheap. That is Tim Hardaway Jr. So I'm not saying that I wouldn't take Gary Harris because he's going to be cheap, and we all know that. But again, I would look at about 10 to 12 other players before I look at Gary Harris. And when it comes to what we need in the free agency, I would look at way more people before I would look at a backup center before Gary Harris. I would look at Bruce Brown. I would look at Taurean Prince, the guys I just covered. I think Gary Harris would be the last signing if I were the GM, if you're able to make that happen, where you go out and get 2-3 guys, and then you're able to bring in Gary Harris later in the free agency. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys. Have a fantastic weekend. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Leave anybody in the comments that you guys want me to cover, and I'll make sure to get to them in the upcoming episodes. Thank you guys for checking it out.